So John McCain could get 36% and somebody else could get 35% and everybody fall below him, but John McCain gets everything. Okay? That's why he had already locked up the Republican nomination by May, while Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama were fighting all the way to the convention. So we need to encourage proportional allocation of delegates for more competitiveness in the elections, and we need to encourage that they're closed so that only Republicans vote. Yes, ma'am.
Currently, the value of the dollar is going this way, the value of gold and silver is going this way, and the price of gas is headed this way. December, what do you expect from that?
Well, a lot's going to depend, and not on Libya. People don't realize it. Libya does have an effect on speculation, so the prices are going up for that reason, but we're not getting a lot of our oil from Libya. Europe gets most of their oil from Libya, which is why I think they were more alarmed by what was going on there. But Libya doesn't concern me as much as Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, and other places where you're starting to see unrest. If anything like what we've seen in Egypt and Tunisia breaks out there, then we are going to be in serious trouble as far as oil prices are concerned. And you bring up a point, and this is something I was talking about to someone in the parking lot earlier. We need to be prepared to take care of ourselves. Starting with our families, starting with our neighbors, we need to start thinking in terms of what would happen if some of these things you're talking about, not only these things, but think about the fact that Congress and the legislatures at the state level seem incapable of dealing with the budget crisis. And if they keep putting it off, if they keep robbing one fund to cover the deficit, and then putting taxes in place to try and replenish that fund, promising they won't raid from it, knowing full well they're going to do it again. If those kinds of practices keep going on, 46 states right now could be on the verge of bankruptcy. 46 states. The federal government is in no position to help them. Maryland was hoping that their legislative office would release some new revenue statistics that would show revenue on an upward trend. Again, some of these folks in the Politburo surprised me with their delusions. In fact, they released a very depressing report. They said, first of all, because of the dependence of Maryland on the federal government, in terms of the number of federal workers and contractors that live in Maryland, the federal government is going to be cutting, and these continuing resolutions right now are killing people because agencies aren't willing to make commitments for work as long as they think that they don't know what the money situation is going to be. That's going to drain money from the Maryland coffers. Gas prices are going to drain money from the Maryland coffers because a lot of these people commute into DC. And this is the thing that I don't understand, in spite of that, they're still talking about raising the gasoline tax in Maryland. And they just passed this bill to introduce all these new students from illegal immigrants into the school system, which is going to cost money that we don't have. And they still have a $34 billion deficit in their public employee pension fund, which it's 60% funded, it's lost its bond rating, and they're doing nothing. Unfortunately, the Scott Walkers of the world are few and far between. So I honestly believe that we can't wait for them to act on our behalf. We have to think about what it would take for us to care for our family and then to help our neighbors. And I'm talking, and you start financially. I know that our church just started a whole series. We want to get as many families as possible into Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University. We had 150 families do that. And we're starting to understand that we need to get our finances in order, because not only does that help us in our church with ministry, because the burden of bad finances just weighs on your ability to do that, it helps us to be prepared for contingencies. And we're going to have contingencies. It's ironic that Dave Ramsey is seeing incredible success right now with his business at a time when things are really looking bad. And I hope people are taking some of those lessons to heart, because I do believe that that's where we're going to end up. There's going to be a crash somewhere. And California is already issuing IOUs to banks, which they think are a joke. And Jerry Brown, the governor out there, doesn't seem to be willing to take on the biggest cost he's got, which is public sector. And I think that when you're talking about being prepared, at least when I talk about being prepared frankly, there are things that we should do at all times. Having been at FEMA, we have a list of things you should always have, regardless. And most people don't figure it out until after there's been a disaster. So, in some respects, being prepared is just being prudent. The reason that I do have concerns is because I see, I don't know what you want to call it, but you see that the people that have become accustomed to government largesse starting to become fearful and lash out in ways that I never anticipated. And I didn't anticipate Wisconsin, what happened up there. I didn't see people responding in that way. And I saw a very sobering statistic a couple days ago. 47% of Americans depend on a government check as their primary source of income. So if the government is not able to care for them, we're going to have to care for them. And we're going to have to do it in a way that minimizes the kinds of things that I hope will happen. I'm not trying to stir panic as much as I am trying to tell people to be vigilant, to be aware of what's going on with people in their neighborhoods, to help out. We found out somebody was suffering and lost their job, had problems, and they were so proud they didn't say anything, but they were starting to spiral out of control, but we caught them in time. Got them in the food pantry, got things for them, and things are better for them. It's just, I guess I'm asking for alertness more than anything else. Yes, ma'am.
I would say that you need to prepare to survive, because if you don't survive, your financial status is irrelevant. I mean, you live in a peninsula in Athens County that has 3 grocery stores. A breakdown of any kind of electric grid, let's say, if you don't have storage of food, what are you going to do? Book your neighbor? You need to prepare to survive, first of all, not just worrying about your finances being in order.
And some of it's cultural too. Some of it's cultural too. I've been amazed at how well ordered, in spite of the amazing devastation they've had over in Japan, how well ordered things still are. I would hope that we can emulate similar circumstances, but I'm not sure. I really, again, like I said, there are certain things I've seen in recent weeks that have disillusioned me a little bit.
So we have different cultures across our country.
Yes.
Because we are not one homogeneous population.
Right.
And what might happen in Detroit or in Washington D.C. is not necessarily what is going to happen in Chicago.
That's very true. That's very true. It's not going to be, but it's going to be enough to where I think we're all going to be affected by it in some way. Not maybe to the depths that you're describing. I mean, frankly, Detroit, I have relatives who live in Detroit. It's just one of the saddest stories. A great American city that's basically on its knees. And I'm kind of watching to see how they respond, if they can recover. But it's a difficult time, but it's not a surprising time necessarily. You knew the check was going to have to run out sooner or later. And maybe, as you said, now that we're at that point, maybe a few breakdowns will cause a chain reaction, and people say, whoa, wait a minute, we don't want that to happen. But then I see what happens out in California, and I see my home state going in the same direction, and I think they're all fools. It's hard to say.
But look at Wisconsin, because if you look across multiple polls, what's happening in Wisconsin is not necessarily what's happening on the TV screen.
I agree. I've seen the poll. You're right. But again, it's that megaphone effect. And we can't discount that because it's been effective in putting the 30% in charge. So, we have to be messaging has a great deal of power. And they didn't call us the silent majority for nothing. Because frankly, we had faith in the system. We had faith that the principles were the same, even if people differed in how to implement them. Well, now we know that's...
I think there's one really encouraging thing that we should all be looking at. Barack Obama was elected in November of 2008.
Yes.
In September of 2009, not even a year late, look at who turned out and in the numbers they turned out. And look at what was mobilized for the election, the history-breaking election in 2010. That's not a long time.
It's not a long time.
That kind of sea change was that.
And we need to push further, because, what was it Harry Reid said? He thinks that as the economy gets better, the Tea Party's going to go away. Anybody here believe that?